So you going to the Real Tapes gig after this? Hello and welcome to the Deep Down NBA podcast. My name is Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boff, Mr. Boff, my man. How are we?
So good, Sean. So good. Just watched Juan Toscano Anderson put his name firmly in the MVP discussion with an absolutely scintillating fourth quarter against the Philadelphia 76ers.
Welcome to the JTA show. Have you seen a really good JTA game before?
Not like a JTA game, but very much aware.
Like
something like that. Very much aware of his particular skill set.
His
cerebral nature. If I dare use that word. He's a smart player. He's a smart player.
JTA, for however good he is on the court, one time tweeted at LeBron at the height of Black Lives Matter and said, "Hey, at King James, together, I'm a Mexican, you're a black dude, we can overcome racial inequality," and King James left him on red.
Yeah, fair enough. What was he thinking? He's like, I'm just going to tweet at LeBron.
JTA is the sort of dude who, if LeBron hit him in the face, he would do exactly what Big Stew... Is it Big Stew or Beef Stew?
Beef Stew,
Stew. He would do exactly the same thing, I reckon.
Yeah.
We saw
He's a bit of a fiery character.
We saw the prologue with the George's Nang hit before.
Yeah.
And then... fouled out /2 double technicals or whatever.
Yeah, a bit of niggle in that fourth quarter. Jordan Poole Seth Curry with an absolutely abysmal attempt to foul Jordan Poole and prevent him getting a layup attempt off after he got beaten backdoor, and Jordan Poole flexing and doing the little lip kind of curl, when little
Growl.
snarl. Yeah, flexing and doing that. It wasn't like the up top flex. It was like the down low flex with the snarl. It's like, all right. Simultaneously, I was like, okay, we get it, settle down. But I was also like, damn, I just want to beat you. Kind of caught in the middle.
That's one of the best things about going for the Warriors. They always play down to their competition. So we'll be playing a team that isn't very good right now, the Sixers with Embiid, or he who shall not be named. And the Warriors just get down by 19 points and make it a difficult game, so that when they finally come back and, of course, beat a team that they're better than, it's just it goes off in the A.
It goes up in the A.
It's cold. A for Oakland, of course.
It's cold in the N, as friend of the pod Marco said on the JVG NBA Tribute Show. That was one of the funniest moments of the JVG NBA Tribute Show. That was fucking hilarious. Anyway, should we talk about the fucking Kings?
I love talking about the Kings. So these Kings that, by our projections 2 years ago, should be thick in the Western Conference playoff race.
Oh, yeah.
They are thin in the lottery race. But yeah, we'll start off with the biggest news of the week, is that the first coach fired in the NBA was the Sacramento Kings, firing Luke Walton, and Alvin Gentry has been promoted to interim head coach with the opportunity to win his spot next off-season, coming from Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. The Kings started off 5-4 and they're now 6-12. I think that was before today's games. You can get the score up for Portland, but I'll just guess they lost, so they're 6-13. And I think one thing I want to say before I get your thoughts is John Hollinger had a really good quote in his piece about this firing. He says,
They won.
Fuck. If you fire your coach in the first third of the league year, then you probably should have done it in the off-season.
Yeah, it's a fucking travesty of decision-making. It's if I could draw a parallel to your Watford Hornets beating Manchester United 4-1 and then Manchester United firing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, whose job was already on the line, he's on the hot seat. And they decided not to fire him a couple of weeks ago. And it's like, well, you know what? If you didn't fire him after the Liverpool game, you didn't fire him after the Man City game. If he was only hanging on by one thread, that one more bad loss and he's done, why didn't you just... If the thread was that thin, that all you needed to see was that they didn't immediately get it together, why wait? You know? And there was buzz in the offseason that Luke Walton was going to lose his job.
Yeah.
And to be honest, he had not really done anything to suggest that would have been undeserved.
He's been a coach for 6 years.
Yeah, well,
that's wild.
I put up his numbers before. He's the most wins in a season he's ever had is 37.
Is that with the first Lakers? Or?
That was the third Lakers year
with LeBron.
Yeah,
that probably helps.
37 wins. He's got a career 41 winning percentage.
Second winningest coach in Kings history.
I believe that actually... does that include... No, it doesn't include his... It doesn't include his...
Steve Kerr run.
Steve Kerr run.
Yeah, that was the whole thing.
Which is this is why he got hired in the first place. So he's pretty much had 6 years at 2 different clubs and basically proven that he's not a particularly good coach.
Yeah.
And the things that the best season in recent Kings history, and I wonder if friend of the pod or Les would agree, was Dave Yeager's last Kings season, where they just ran and they like led the league in pace, and it was just like when De'Aaron Fox kind of had like that coming out party, and it was like, whoa, this team's unstoppable in the fast break. And there wasn't much other than that. There wasn't much D, but
you're a bad team anyway.
Walton came in and completely changed things around, and it didn't really work because his first 2 seasons he went 31 and 41 both times. So, the Kings don't have like an amazing team. There's a lot of issues with the way that the Kings are currently constituted, but it's not unreasonable to have said that at any point over the last 2.5 seasons that he would have had them go on like a 10-game stretch where they went like 8-2 and they looked like a playoff team. Like, did that really ever happen? I mean, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I don't think it did. And yeah, I mean, like, on a macro level, his 68-93 record with the Kings is, as you said, the second winningest record in Kings history since they came back to Sacramento, which I think was in 1985. Yeah. That's fucking terrible. That sucks. That is the worst.
Yeah, that's shit. And like back to Dave Yeager, like when you've got a bad team and your team is young and really fast, pretty much do exactly what he did. Just make them run, get more opportunities, get more shots, use your slim advantages to your advantage. And then he was fired for non-basketball reasons. Like, I think he came from ownership because they disagreed and stuff. So, like...
He got fired in Memphis for non-basketball reasons as well.
Yeah, so maybe he's a bit of a see you next Tuesday.
Yeah, he's potentially...
Well, he hasn't got a job since then. Is the assistant coach for Philly at the moment?
He is. I believe did he get diagnosed with cancer or something recently?
He did. Fuck.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
Well, you reckon because he's a bad worker?
No, that's not what I was insinuating whatsoever. But I think if you get fired from 2 young teams that you'd actually kind of done a pretty good job with for non-basketball reasons, there's probably a bit of evidence that you're maybe the problem is you on a personal level. But he was that last season. It was 2018-19. They were 39-43. So that was 8 games better than any of the Walton seasons. Admittedly, he had 10 games more to work with, but still, that works out to a substantially better winning percentage than Walton ever mustered with the Kings. And they looked better, and they could actually make a credible claim that they were doing something right, which wasn't really the case at any point in Walton's tenure. And it does make you question, like, there was the noise in the off season and rumblings. I don't think it ever got too far down the track. But why didn't it? Because it's not like he's come out and done pretty much exactly what he's always done with this team, with the exact same cast of characters he had last year, plus Davion Mitchell, who's a rookie who you're not really going to get heaps out of. It's effectively the same team as last year, and he's done the exact same thing that he was doing last year. And they're like, nah, that's it. That's done. This time we're getting rid of him. What were they expecting? That the same coach with the same team with the same system would come out and they'd be like, whoa, everything's different now. Which leads me to the second kind of thrust of this is that allegedly with the assistant coach Alvin Gentry coming in as the interim, they're expecting internal improvement. How? From where? Where's the improvement?
Don't ask me, Dante. I'm as befuzzled as you.
It boggles the mind because Alvin Gentry is not known as a defensive coach. In fact, he's Mark D'Antoni disciple, 7 seconds or less roots. Like he's a very much an offensive coach, and you'd have to imagine that he had a very large presence in like the offensive game planning. He's already said he's gonna keep the same system. They've got a system that works. I mean, I would say, Alvin, what's going on here? where's the internal improvement coming from? Because the staff's still the same. Alvin Gentry was already, putting in having his 2 cents in the offensive game plan. Now he's, the guy making the plan. But the development staff is still there. The trainers are still there. The coaching staff is still there. Like, where's this internal improvement coming from?
Yeah, definitely. And, the fact that they said they're not going to make any trades. I'm just trying to find the report right now where it's like, all right, so the 76ers and Kings aren't holding trades. And so, the report from Jake Fisher of Bleach Report was that the Kings are expecting internal improvement after the coaching change, and they're not going to make a major trade or any trades for that matter. So it's like, look, you've got the exact same cast of characters who have failed in pretty much the exact same setting for the past 3 years, if not longer, and he's want them to be better. And Tristan Thompson's yapping after games and he's saying some stupid stuff, and I tell you what, every single time I hear Tristan Thompson talk, I think back to Game 6 of the 2016 finals when he got the ball 3 seconds left in the post, jab stepped on Draymond, then took a dribble step back and then hit it, and everyone went nuts. It's oh, he doesn't do that. And I think that might have been the only time in his whole entire life I've been wow, you've impressed me, Tristan Thompson, and it was just a fluke. But that's just ingrained in the back of my head. It's befuzzling. Where the frick do you go from here?
Where the frick indeed.
How
no explicit tag on this one.
How? It's they're in the play-in race against Minnesota right now, and Minnesota are on a bit of a roll after playing some bad teams. And who'd they play today? The Heat, which they ended up winning. So that was the first good win. I think they're on a 5-game win streak. Things are at least going up in Minnesota, and at least, the theory of the team is you've got these guys who will be good.
Well, and Minnesota have if you're comparing Minnie and Sacramento, Minnesota have indisputably the best player, and De'Aaron Fox has been pretty average this year, so possibly in Anthony Edwards they have the best 2 players. I mean, maybe Harry Barnes throws his name into the ring there, but that's the conversation that we're having. Is if we're having a conversation,
that's the 10th seed, folks.
If we're having a conversation about a team whose best player is Harry Barnes, that's kind of all that needs to be said. Okay, so I personally don't think that. I think that Fox is having a down year by the standards that he's set the last couple of seasons, but that is not something that should precipitate a trade for him, or even looking for a trade, especially because he signed the long-term contract and he ostensibly wants to be in Sacramento.
Yeah, he said all the right things,
which is important for the Kings. I mean, small market with a history of players leaving them, so him wanting to be there is kind of big for them.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a trade with Houston, which I'm assuming that you got from you got it from Danny LaRue?
Yeah. So Danny LaRue went on Heat's pod with Jonathan Sharks of The Ringer, and Jonathan Sharks just wrote an article saying, hey, Luke Walton's gone, maybe it's time for a bit of a shake-up on the roster as well, because yes, you could say it's Luke Walton's fault, and maybe the firing came from ownership, but Alvin Gentry's still got a bad roster in front of him. So it's looking at what a possible trade would be, and pretty much they said it's really hard to trade a lead ball handler, because if you're a good team, you've already got your lead ball handler, and if you're a bad team, you want to shoot for the stars and maybe get one of the best lead ball handlers. It's a position that is very either end of the spectrum. So to trade De'Aaron Fox, right? You're smiling. What are you smiling at?
Nah, nothing.
Okay. So to trade De'Aaron Fox, you would have to be asking a bad team to lock into De'Aaron Fox for the next 4 years, or say to a good team, hey, maybe this is the guy that pushes you over the edge.
Yeah.
Which, if you're a good team, you're a good team because you've got good players, not De'Aaron Fox as your point guard, which this year, like you said, he hasn't been that good. So a trade which they came to and both didn't say would happen, which I think is quite interesting, would be trading De'Aaron Fox to Houston. So this would be one of the situations where it's Houston, you're rebuilding, you don't have a point guard yet. Here's a guy who's under contract for the next 4 years and you could have to be your point guard with your young core. So trading De'Aaron Fox to Houston for Christian Wood and a collection of the young players not named Jalen Green. So that could be Joshawn Tate, Kevin Porter Jr., Kenyon Martin, Alperen Şengün. Or maybe even you can chuck out some of those young players and throw in Eric Gordon and save him from a losing situation to go to another losing situation. Are you inspired by any collection of the two big contracts and Christian Wood and Eric Gordon and a bunch of those young players going to Sacramento?
No, because it reminds me of two trades from the early 2010s. One is the Deron Williams trade to the New Jersey Nets from Utah, and the other one is the Melo trade, where the players that were involved max out at like good NBA players. Christian Wood being involved is like, okay, Christian Wood's probably better than a good NBA player, but there's a pretty strong case to be made that Christian Wood is like an empty calories player.
Also heading to a team with Rashawn Holmes already.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, like they could probably play together. I mean, Christian Wood can.
It's not sexy, but is it?
Nah, it's not. But I mean, like the centerpiece of the Darren Williams trade was Derek Favors. It was like Derek Favors and a couple of other guys, and Derek Favors went on to have a very distinguished NBA career, but it's not worth trading an all-star level player. Fox would have been a 2-time all-star if he was playing in the East.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable calling him an all-star. And, Wilson Chandler, Gallo in the Melo trade, like great players. Gallo has been a really important player on some really good teams. Wilson Chandler has done like some amazing things, but probably not worth it. Like, Denver won the trade because of picks and because of basically just like luck
and the mismanagement of New York giving them Jamal Murray.
So whilst you were talking, the reason why I was smiling is because I'm just thinking like, what about a trade with Philly that does involve what if we went and Maxey for
and stuff.
No, well, just that jumbo point guard, he who shall not be named, and Maxey for Fox, and then I don't know, maybe you swap young guards, Fox and Mitchell or something, Fox and then another asset, because I think it's safe to say that Maxey is a really good asset that they wouldn't want to throw in, but he's kind of redundant if you're bringing Fox in anyway.
His value might be higher than it ever will be right now.
Yeah, but he's killing it whilst he's getting to be the starting point guard. So obviously, number 25 for the 76ers is a bit of an unstable, uncertain asset. Fox, you'd be buying low. So I don't know, if you were Sacramento, would you just try and bring in Maxey and take a swing on and see how you go? And conversely, like, it's an interesting thought experiment for Philadelphia if you would do that. Like, is De'Aaron Fox the player that like unlocks everything?
I've also thought about this, and I would do it if I'm Sacramento in a heartbeat. Because Ben Simmons, like, yes. Oh, shit.
You said it. Oh, no. The gag is up.
Ben Simmons is really good at basketball, and he's got plenty of question marks around him. But I think that team really makes a push for the playoffs or play-in, actually. They make a push for the play-in, especially with Alvin Gentry. If you're just like, hey, just run. Like, just go out, do everything. Try and score 20 points
a night. You know what's a really important part of Alvin Gentry's offensive philosophy?
Running.
Shooting threes.
But if he's the only non-shooter, then you've got a problem with... who's their center again? Rashawn
Holmes.
Yeah. But
the problem is that he's not the only non-shooter.
The fact that Sacramento has called about Ben Simmons before, and Daryl Morey says, I would love to do a trade, Fox and Halliburton, and they say, no Halliburton, and they say, no trade. So, like, if Daryl Morey, who has said recently he wants it to go on, he doesn't want it, but he's happy for it to go on for a year, 2 years from now, if he's like Halliburton, they say no, he's just going to say no. Because, like, and you never do that if you're Sacramento. So... Would you do it if you're Philly and you're not getting Halliburton?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think a pick and roll with De'Aaron Fox and Joel Embiid?
I mean, like, in theory, because okay, now that I'm thinking about it, no, because like we talked about before, Fox's best attribute is his ability to play in the half in transition, and Philly needs someone who really is like a half court initiator, creator, and that's not always Fox's best skill. He can definitely do that, but there would be probably some developmental speed bumps whilst he tries to figure out how to do that with this team. And they really just need someone who can, like run pick and rolls, attack off the dribble, shoot threes in the half court. Because obviously with Embiid and then like dudes who are not exactly like superb athletes like Tob Harris, like they're not like running all the time. So
all right, I'll throw one more at you, and this is out of left field before we move on. Would the non-Sacramento team say yes or no? So straight up, De'Aaron Fox for Michael Porter Jr.
The Kings would say no.
The Kings would say no.
The Kings would say no.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because what if
he's
healthy?
Well, what if? Sure, what if? Then he can come back and average 9.9 points per game and shoot 35% from the field.
I would say last year is more representative of what he does in this year.
But, okay, well then what if he's healthy? Because last year was a healthy season and towards the end he wasn't healthy. Towards the end he was unplayable because he wasn't giving you anything on offense and he was a target defensively. And that's the thing. It's like, what if he's healthy? Okay. If he's healthy, his best performance is like... without extrapolating, which you don't really want to do if you're going to trade away the best player that your team's had in the last 5 years. This is Sacramento.
I know.
Without extrapolating Porter Jr.'s performance, his best performance is something in like the 22 and 8 range on like pretty decent efficiency. Guess what? Fox fucking averaged 25 and 8 last year. On pretty decent efficiency as the best player on a team outside of the safety net of playing with Murray and Jokic. So, no fucking way would I do that. In summary, no. Get that stinking pile of poo away from me.
Yeah, I don't think either team does it either, but I'd love to see you rolled up. On that news, let's move on to the next piece on our board, which is that Michael Porter Jr. might miss the rest of the season with a back injury, who wrote this thing coming from Mike Singer of the Denver Post. Doesn't say the on the run sheet, don't you? You're going to fix that. So currently, Michael Porter Jr. has already or is flying to Florida to get a second opinion on his back, because obviously surgery is the absolute worst case scenario. And as I wrote a nug love last night, maybe you can get a second opinion on his vaccine hesitancy.
Where did you write that?
On nuglove.com.
Whoa. /Sean Carroll.
Doesn't work like that. So he might be out for the whole entire season, and it looks pretty bad. He re-injured his back in the Phoenix Suns series last year. As you said, looked horrible. And Chris Paul also saw that he looked horrible and decided to put him in actions every single time. He looked bad. And then his back, he says, was still bugging him throughout the whole entire offseason. He entered the year very, very lackluster performance to start the year, which in retrospect is actually quite funny, because after that playoff showing, he went on JJ Redick's pod and just said, like, look, I'm here, I've made it, I'm an all-star, I've signed my max contract. Well, not an all-star, but like, everyone's giving me buzz for most improved player of the year. And then he said, there's this doctor for the Clippers who said, we will never draft him because he will never play a game of basketball. Like, he will never be good. Like, we are red flagging him. And obviously they picked Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and then Jerome Robinson, the 2 picks before him.
How'd that work out for them?
Oh, SGA's all right.
SGA's all right. He's fucking great. He doesn't play for them.
Yeah, well, he turned into Paul George.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember that.
Do I?
And then, look...
They traded how many picks for Paul George?
Now, if you look at Michael Porter Jr., he doesn't look like he... Like, this is really concerning. If he has surgery on his back, he's out for the whole entire year. He's just inked a deal that if he doesn't become an all-star, which is kind of laughable at the moment, he will get paid $145 million. So maybe he shouldn't have... money
if you can get it.
Maybe he shouldn't have got on a pod and just waved around the fact that a Clippers doctor said, we're not drafting him because he's too injury prone, because it's come back and bit him right on the adductor. That's not in your spine.
The adductor's like in the groin.
Oh, what's the there's a name for one of your back bits.
Fifth metatarsal.
That's your hand.
Yeah.
What's a back thing?
Any doctors in the audience at us?
Bueller?
No, the back thing is... Oh, what are they? They're the vertebra.
Yeah,
the vertebra.
Yeah. But there's one of them that starts with A, I think.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll just placeholder vertebra.
Yeah, no. I'll edit it in after. No, I won't. What are your thoughts on Michael Porter Jr.'s injury?
Edit that in post. I mean, like, it's icky. I mean, I said this like 2 weeks ago that we've been saying it, Oh my God, are you okay?
I'll just mute myself on Zoom, that's alright.
Do you need a drink of water? We've been saying this since the off-season, that this is not the year that this team is built for. So in some sense, it's like, well, you know what? If you're going to miss a year of Porter Jr., you may as well make it when Murray's out as well, and you have no chance of a deep playoff run.
Yeah.
Cool. Sync it up. Wash the season. Both players are back for day one next season. You're ready to make your championship push. Cool, get it. It's super fucking concerning though. Because there's a reason why they got him. There's a reason why he's on their team, like you said, because people were fucking red flagging him. He was going to be the number one pick. You know, the start of his freshman season in college, he was the number one pick.
Yeah.
Missed his entire freshman season in college, except for he played in his first game. He injured himself and he played 2 games at the end.
Yeah.
Missed his entire rookie season. His first appearance in the playoffs, in a significant capacity, he was, immobile, couldn't do anything. Now that's super concerning. You're talking about 3 of the last 5 years of his career he's missed entirely through injury. If he misses this season, he's played 10 games this year. That is super concerning, and you couldn't proceed, even with the utmost faith in your medical staff. You couldn't proceed, saying that we're gonna have this guy on our team, and that is a really difficult proposition because his team is not built to withstand him not being there long term. That's whether it's 172 million and he makes the All NBA team, or it's 145 million and he doesn't. 145 million is 28 million per year. That's big slot to not know whether that player is actually going to play or not. That's some real long-term difficulty, and much like Simmons, he becomes kind of like an unstable asset if they did want to trade him, because who's gonna
take the risk?
Who's gonna take the risk?
No.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and fuck, yesterday against Portland Trailblazers, there's already super short-handed Denver Nuggets who are playing without Nikola Jokic at the moment, who's got a sore wrist and he's missed 3 games. Obviously, missing Jamal Murray, tore his ACL. Yesterday, PJ Dozier tore his ACL, so now he's out for the whole entire season. And he's a bit player, but I really believed he could become like a solid Gary Harris type, because he's already there on defense. He's already a great guard defender. Just needs to start hitting some shots. And the first 2 games of the year, he was hitting these off the dribble step backs, and it's dude, that's awesome. Just make the catch and shoot ones. And then he struggled since then to just consistently shoot. But now with Michael Porter Jr. done, he was going to be the guy to come up and take those minutes. And now you're just that's...
Well, big news for Bones.
Well, Bones is in a walking boot.
He's in a walking boot. What did he do?
It was a right ankle sprain. So he's going to be back in a week or 2. But Bones isn't the wing size guy, and he's definitely not guarding anyone on the other side. So it's this is going to be a lot of Will Barton. But Will Barton being good, we already know Will Barton can do what he can do, which is get 14 points inefficiently, sometimes.
Yeah, Will Barton. I was going to say Will Barton can do more than what he can do. In the sense that Will Barton thinks that he's LeBron.
Well, Will Barton, when everyone's healthy, he'll go 7 of 15 from the floor, but when everyone's not healthy, he'll go 7 of 32 from the floor.
Yeah, if you asked Will Barton who's your game most similar to, he'd be Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant's most similar to me.
Kevin Durant's most. Kevin Durant stole that move from me. Me and Kevin, we see the game the same way.
Kevin and I.
Yeah.
Well,
I was talking as Will Barton.
So what, you're any stupid? Will Barton, as the primary go-to scorer on this basketball team, put up 10 shots against Portland. Portland aren't a great defense. In fact, that's
you can say that
again. He only got off 10 shots, and he's struggling to create at an elite level, which we knew that's who he is. You're not that guy, pal, right? And now
trust me, you are not that guy, pal.
Scored 11 points as the primary option. Jeff Green, who was getting, he got more shots and he got more open shots because he's Jeff Green. He's going to leave him open. Jeff Green finished with 23 points on the night of 24, but it's holy smokes. Why am I making this not explicit? Holy shit.
We've got holy smokes and we've got freak.
This is a horrible situation to be in. It's are Denver going to be in the play-in discussion now? Where do they... Because they've got all these dudes and then these backups who are okay, Jamal's out, maybe this guy gets some minutes, maybe this gets some minutes. And Monty Morris is dealing with fucking a lower leg injury.
Yeah.
There's nothing here. And when Jokic comes back, he's just going to still have a plus 52 and they lose by 10. Yeah. Because he's passing it to Facundo Campazzo.
Well, the other day, my housemate Jay, who is a big Denver Nuggets fan, she's "Oi, look at this," and she leans over and she shows me a Denver Nuggets Instagram story, and it was tonight's starting 5, and it was Monty Morris.
There's 2 dudes called Jay Green.
Yeah, it was Monty Morris, Will Barton, Aaron Gordon, and then the 2 Jay Greens.
It's
Jeff and Jermichael. And I was like, woof, we're getting into like 2016 Lakers territory where it's like, your Los Angeles Lakers,
Chris Kaman,
Robert
Steve Blake.
Sacre, Jordan Hill, Wayne Ellington. Kind of like, you're like, whoa. And then
Xavier, what's his name?
Yeah, Xavier Ellis.
Yeah.
Xavier Ellis. I feel like I was talking about Xavier Ellis the other day.
You wouldn't. No, you're
No,
right.
I feel like Lucas was talking about Xavier Ellis the other day, and I just made an off the cuff remark. Xavier Ellis is really hot. Xavier Ellis and Wayne Selden both have those like piercing kind of like almost like turquoise eyes, and you're like, what were you looking at me?
Yeah, I almost bought a Wayne Selden the 4th jersey when I was in Memphis, and I really regret not doing it. It was only $50.
Alex was like, are you surprised to know that Wayne Selden is on a roster? And I was like, yes, Wayne Selden plays with the Knicks. Wayne Selden's still in the league.
No.
Yeah, he plays with the Knicks.
Don't show me.
Shout out to Les for that one.
Just before we move on from this Denver point, I just want to say, like, Tim Connolly built this roster to compete for a title, and in doing so, he sort of hamstrung himself for secondary options. Like, this team's ready to compete when they're all at full strength, right? But there's no counter moves, and not every team is going to be the Golden State Warriors, where you've got Nemanja Bjelica and then JTA and then like Looney and Draymond. Like, not everyone's going to have all these different looks at all your different positions, but like, as soon as you lose these guys, you're looking extremely shallow. So like, Bol, Zeke Naji, and Vlatko Kankar all have roster spots. Like, that is a tangible asset out of the 15. You cannot replace it. Like, that's a capped number, right? So Kankar's on the team because he's best friends with Jokic, right? He has shown nothing at the NBA level, and all of a sudden you get all his injuries, and he's still getting DNPs, and it's like, okay, yeah, you want to keep Jokic happy, but like, now what the hell are you going to do when you like need to win games? Yeah. Like, even if everyone's at full strength, like, injury management, rest MPJ game, throw in like your scoring wing who's 19 years old on a two-way, or just throw in like Vlatko Kankar, but he's not getting looks. Bol, while he did play in the first quarter in his first time in his whole life last week, he's just been getting DNPs since then, and he played 3 minutes of garbage time in this game. And Marcus Howard and Peter Corneal, they're two-way players. Like, that's two-way players. Like, not everyone's light years ahead and can get like solid production out of their two-way players. But like, Zeke Naji, you drafted him 26, give him a fucking go. Like, Jokic is injured and you're playing the greens. You're just rotating the greens. Yeah. Like, you've just got these wasted roster spots.
Throw in 15, 20 minutes and see what happens. I guess that's the issue, is that their team organizationally is not like throwing in the towel and saying, all right, well, maybe we should just try and develop some of these dudes so that we've got like a good 8th, 9th man next season. It's very much like we're in the thick of the playoff race. We can't afford to fall behind, which is why Jeff Green's playing 35 minutes a game. Which,
you're going to kill him, man.
Yeah, you probably will. You actually might kill him.
He's already a vegan. He can't be a vegan again. Like, this is his last win.
I don't know how. Yeah. Well, this is, and he's already playing from behind with the whole like enlarged heart thing.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
Yeah. He might actually die. Someone check on him. And in the thin air and the altitude in Denver, whoa, I'm getting nervous.
Hey, is that a weed I see? All right, just before we move on, even though I said that before.
Just before we move on.
By the time you hear this, Lance Stevenson will probably play for the Denver Nuggets. He's currently on their Grand Rapids Gold G League team and is featuring plentiful. I think he had like 16 points on like 17 shots in the G League. Beautiful. Lance Stevenson's probably going to get called up for the Denver Nuggets, so just get prepared for that, all right?
He can have that era of Clippers basketball reunion with him and Austin Rivers.
Oh, well, they also had Isaiah Hartenstein, but, that's a different era.
That's everyone, the Isaiah Hartenstein era of Clippers basketball.
We were over the moon when we first heard that the NBA was going to be televised on Australian free-to-air TV in the 2019-20 season. It didn't exactly go swimmingly, with the nasty cough halting the season and games getting cancelled left, right and centre, but it was a huge step and an exciting one for basketball fans all across the country.
Better yet, it wasn't a commercial channel cashing in on some basketball nerds like us. It was SBS, one of our public broadcasters. Unfortunately, the NBA wasn't the only thing SBS was pushing last season. They also ran advertisements from Sportsbet, Ladbroke, Bet365, BetEasy, and Neds, some of the biggest sports betting companies in Australia.
In a one step forwards, two steps backwards move, SBS has dropped the ball here. As a public broadcaster, SBS plays a key role in providing relevant, culturally appropriate health information to local communities. The last thing SBS should be doing is offering a platform for gambling companies during the most financially unstable time in recent memory.
This past year, men aged 18 to 24 made up 79% of new gambling account holders, with increased median spending and frequency of bets. This is the last thing we should be spending our money on given the financial uncertainty that comes with the pandemic. During COVID lockdowns, wagering companies spent more money on advertising and incentives to gamble, and it worked. SBS needs to hear from viewers that gambling ad revenue isn't worth the harm it causes. Call on the SBS chair, George Savitas, to put community health ahead of gambling revenue by signing the petition at www.endgamblingAds.org.au/get-gambling-off-SBS with hyphens in between.
The deep two. God, that's a mouthful. Anyways, I'm Marco, co-host of the Hey, Daniel Gafford, what's the name of our podcast?
The JVG NBA Tribute Show.
Wow, I can't believe it's that easy. Thanks, Gaff. You probably know us as two members of the Four-Man Weave plus Marco, but we know you as our next listener.
Well said, Lucas. I gotta ask, how do we differ from the pack of basketball podcasts?
It's a great question, Marco. You see, on our basketball podcast, we have two male co-hosts.
Wow, truly groundbreaking. After this episode, stay on your favorite podcasting app and give us a spin.
All right, we're actually moving on. So, wow, big pod for Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report, because he has this one. Stephen Silas might be on the hot seat. That's Houston Rockets head coach Stephen Silas. Houston, I believe they've got 2 wins on the season. They did go on a 15-game losing streak, which
they broke today.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. So you're in a fun cherry-picked stat.
Yes.
For everyone's favorite number 2 overall pick, who Instagram, every single basketball outlet's Instagram was ready to anoint this dude after he played well in his first game, and then in his second game he had like 31 points against the Lakers and he made 8 threes. They were like, whoa, he's arrived. Jalen Green, his offensive on-off numbers for points per possession is that they're minus 20 worse with him on the floor, and his defensive is slightly better at plus 15, which when you put those together it gets you minus 35.5, which means that when he's on the floor his team is being outscored by 35.5 points per 100 possessions, which is pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
What percentile is that?
It's in the 0th percentile, which I would suspect, is if not the absolute worst in the league. It's like bottom like 1 or 2. Statistically speaking, it might be like bottom 1 or 2. He also has a 7.7 PER and negative win shares.
Yeah, so but PER is really like it leans into big men.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it actually does. Montrezl Harrell this season has the 4th best PER in the league.
You remember Brandon Wright?
No, who's that?
He led the league in PER.
Former UNC Tar Heel.
Really? See, stupid shit like that, Dante. That's why they listen.
Former Phoenix Sun, Brandon Wright as well. The one that got away. He played half a season with us.
So did PJ Tucker, didn't
he? Yeah, drafted PJ Tucker, much like Derrick Jones Jr. as a shooting guard. So anyway, that's just a quick aside on Jalen Green, just to kind of illustrate how wretched this season has been. But Jalen Green looks like rookie Jordan Poole, so not very good. But whatever. See how it goes. Figure that shit out later. Like, Jalen Green doesn't have to be. I mean, you'd hope he's not the worst player in the league, which he has been.
I mean, like he looks like rookie Jordan Poole, but he also looks like rookie Dennis Smith Jr.
Is that supposed to make me feel better?
No.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say,
I'm just saying it can go either way, man.
Yeah, it can go either way. Yeah.
That's a closing comment.
Yeah, that is a closing comment. Wow. Fucking now I'm like, well, where are they now?
So the report was that Stephen Silas might be on the hot seat, and Houston are considering alternative coaching people.
Luke Walton's available.
Yeah, awesome, man. So is Stephen Silas. Look, if you're the worst team in the whole entire league, you're tanking, you want to be bad, you have a coach who this is only his second year as the coach. He's been an assistant for like 19 years. By all accounts, he was supposed to be the good offensive guru that was going to save James Harden's career and like keep him in Houston, and didn't work out. He was obviously crying in the presser. He's had a rough time. Poor bloke. See, I could have said poor cunt there, but we're going to get rid of the E. And it's like, even if he's not the guy you want to develop your young players, and Kevin Porter Jr., what's the number that his field goal percentage starts with? It's probably a 3. Might
is
be
it
a 2.
1? I was going to say, is it a 1 or a 2?
Nah, it's definitely a 3, but it's a 3-4 something. Have you got it?
Yeah, it's definitely a 3. It's a 3-6.
Oh, good on him.
I'll tell you what though, in his defense, his 3-point also starts with a 3.
So
3-1, but
so Stephen Silas.
do you know his first name is Brian?
No, it's
His
not.
real name is Brian Kevin Porter Jr.
So his 3 middle names are Kevin Porter Jr.
So it's like KV. It's not KP.
No.
It's not KPJ. It's KVP Jr.
It's like Wardell, Stephen Curry.
BK. Yeah,
So you just like call it from your middle. Hey, you should start calling me Thomas or Albert. What if I just rock up and I'm like, yeah, I'm Albert now. Albert Carroll. I'm sick of shooting. What's funny about that?
Nothing. Albert.
Cool, yeah, as you were. So like the knock on Stephen Silas would be that you don't want him looking after the future of these young guys who you really want him to develop and blossom into the beautiful young stories that they are. But also, like, you're going to get a few more high draft picks. You're going to be tanking. You're going to get more Jalen Greens. Even if Stephen Silas is the wrong choice, he's the right choice for losing basketball games. What do you reckon?
I reckon pour one out for this bloke, because you could not have been dealt a worse hand in your first go as an NBA coach. In terms of being hired, like you said, to kind of be that like fresh voice, but also like get the most out of the superstars, and then like you immediately trade your superstars are immediately traded. And you endure a pretty wretched season last year, you know, on an organizational level, the franchise trying to figure out like what it's going to be post James Harden. And then obviously this season it hasn't really gone right. So pour one out for him as well. I guess he's good for losing games, and they're going to want to keep their, keep their luck at the top of the draft as good as it can possibly be. But there is, I think, a bit of an onus on that like aspect of the report that says that they want to see development. Christian Wood has not been fantastic. Like, he's been fine. KPJ has been bad. Jalen Green's been awful.
Alperen Şengün, Kevin Martin Jr. is not getting much of a run.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's fine though. I mean, that's fine. I mean, like not all of these guys are going to come in and contribute and have like a big role right away. But yeah, it is a bit concerning, and you do kind of risk, like, I think in basketball more than in other sports, there is an element of like, not like breaking a player, but if the player's in the wrong environment for like the first 2 or 3 years of his career, might be it. You know, like someone like Marvin Bagley is a good example of someone who was like not in the right environment, obviously wasn't supported as a person, didn't blossom as a player, and you just kind of sit in that bad environment. You don't develop the way that you should be for a couple of years, and it's like that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And if that happened with any of these young guys who they're kind of banking on, like they got KPJ for free, so if he turns out to be shit, it doesn't matter. Jalen Green needs to be really, really good. You kind of can't miss on your second overall pick and it work out. Like, that's too big of too big of an asset that if he misses, this team's not going to be good for 5 years. So I think there is that incentive and that need that I do agree with to try and bring someone in who can develop, but the risk that you run is like you completely upend these guys' development so far, and if you don't get the next one right, then it's like all of a sudden not only has Jalen Green been in a bad environment for 2.5 years, but he's been in a bad environment with 2 different coaches, and then you bring the third coach in and it's like it's a completely new system to learn, it's a new environment, it's a new way of doing things, and he hasn't been good the whole time. And yeah, Marvin Bagley, second overall pick, Jalen Green, second overall pick. I'm not saying that there's anything there, but like, whew,
Yeah.
goodness me. I feel really bad for Stephen Silas.
How does he turn around? Like,
You don't. The roster sucks, but I think it's pretty clear that he's not a very good coach.
yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't have been dealt a worse hand, like I said, but
In the report, it came from, obviously, the report from inside the organisation saying he might be on the hot seat. But then Jake Fisher also spoke to other teams, and then he said he found out that other teams, whether it be players or coaches, just sometimes laugh in the middle of a game at Houston's disorganisation on offense, and the fact they just don't know where to be, don't know where to go. And then you can imagine a guy like Draymond Green just being like, "Hey, this is where he's supposed to run for this play," and then it just not working, and him being like, "You guys suck."
a good example of what it's supposed to look like is Mark Dagnall with
OKC.
OKC.
Yeah.
'Cause
Congratulations, new father.
Yeah, very, very happy. I mean, like, SGA kind of changes things in terms of what they're able to do. Like, obviously, Houston don't have an SGA comparable player, but the last season and a bit, he has basically just taken an island of misfit toys, and they've got a system, they've got semblance. There's a whole bunch of dudes who probably aren't NBA players playing with a whole bunch of dudes who are probably NBA bench players who are playing significant roles, and not even that they're winning games, which they are, which is why he deserves a lot of credit. But they look like an actual basketball team. Houston doesn't really look like a basketball team, and they didn't really look like a basketball team last season. And it's like, if nothing else, you want to just impress a system upon your players. Difficult to do in these circumstances. Difficult to do with a lot of players who are young from overseas, young, inexperienced. There's a lot of mitigating factors here, but I just don't think that he's done anything that's particularly impressive. And kind of, if you feel like the clock is ticking on the development of some of these guys, then yeah, I think that it is justified to look for a replacement or to start thinking about that. But it's just like, don't make that move for the sake of making the move, because if you bring in the wrong person, like I said before, you risk kind of compounding it. Here's a thought. Kenny Atkinson available.
Yeah. Oh no, he's pretty happy on the bench for Golden State. I tell you what,
I bet he is. But I tell you what would be.
No, he's actually not available. Like, he was just in a coma recently. Like, he just fell off a bike and was just like.
Wait, is that a shit post?
No, I'm being serious.
Kenny Atkinson was in a coma.
He was away from the team. He was fucking injured real bad. It was unrelated to basketball. And they're not saying much because they don't have to, but they're just like, hey, yeah. Atkinson nears return to Warriors bench, emerges as a candidate for the Kings job. So look, maybe he is, but yeah.
This would be the exact same job that he did in
Brooklyn.
Just a random assortment of players, impress a system upon them, get them to play together, and then probably just get replaced when something better comes along.
He injured his leg, Kenny Atkinson, and he won't be on the bench for the foreseeable future.
So you've gone from coma to injured his leg, is what I'm getting from this.
Yeah, now they're just waffling on afterwards.
Yeah. So, all right. Albert Carroll, not to be trusted.
All right,
with his medical reporting.
Let's move on to the next piece of news from a few days ago, but still interesting, is that the Blazers were concluding their investigation into Neil O'Shea, the Portland Trail Blazers general manager, and the most likely outcome is parting ways. And you've written here, lol, because he is white, so he gets parted ways with. Coming from Ian Begley of SNY. So I will say one thing. Now,
Say it.
He's been accused of workplace misconduct, and I think he has 2
Sound
more
like
years.
anyone?
I think he has 2 more years remaining on his contract. So if he is fired because of this workplace misconduct, legally he has no right to the remaining money, the remaining millions of dollars in his contract. But if he is just fired because they want to part ways with him, then he will get bought out and will get the rest of his money that's in his contract. So I think that's what might be the hold up here, which also makes you question, hey, if they wanted to get rid of him, are they trying to do it through this? And it's a little bit icky. It's actually extremely icky. Then again, you also don't want to assume that they're just doing it just to get rid of a guy. So awful situation, but it's probably going to end up in him not having a job in one way or another. And what do you think about him leaving Portland?
Well, I think that I personally don't think that they would try and keep the money. I think that they would just pay him out and say, really sorry this had to happen. Thanks for a great 8 or 9 years. Here you go. Because complete bullshit that the ownership didn't know that this was the workplace culture.
Yeah.
He's been there for forever. Paul Allen, who was the previous owner, passed away a few years ago. They, I know, had a very close working relationship. He's heavily involved in the team, heavily involved in the area. No fucking way that he didn't know what O'Shea was like. Everyone knows what O'Shea is like. He's got a well-earned reputation around the league as being a dick. Not hard to see how that would have manifested in
Him and Dave Yeager,
Dave Yeager. At least, I was going to say at least Dave Yeager had some success, but O'Shea has done pretty well. And no way that the new owner, which I believe her name's Jodie Allen, she's Paul Allen's sister, no way that they didn't know about this. So I'm kind of sus on the timing of it all.
Definitely.
You definitely knew about this for years and you just feel compelled to do it now. So it's not like we're being proactive. It's actually a lot of shit going on around this team that makes you feel not that good. Personally, I think that letting him go is fine because his team's not going anywhere. The team that he's built is not going anywhere, and he, in the off-season, was saying that the reason why the team hasn't been good isn't because of roster construction. It's well, actually, it is because of roster construction.
The roster plays the games.
Because under your watch, Portland has been literally a black hole for wing players. You traded away two first-round picks for Robert Covington just so that you could bench him in the fourth quarter. What I really am interested in is this is the darkest universe, the darkest timeline, is that O'Shea gets fired, a new GM comes in, the team continues to be average or worse. I think they're 10-9 this season.
Yeah.
The team continues to be average or worse, and then you've got new GM with a star player who potentially wants out, with a coach who he didn't hire. Dame's the guy who I've known my entire basketball life running the show is gone. I have to get used to a new person. Was I thrilled about the coaching hire? Ultimately, he probably does like Chauncey. But that kind of organizational disconnect where you have new GM, didn't hire the coach, star wants to leave, GM impulse to trade the star and blow it up. What happens to the coach? That all gets really icky really quickly. In terms of an organizational decision making. Context. And the only way that it doesn't get icky is if the Blazers get really good right now, this season or next season.
Win a title this year.
Which from what or just be the 4 seed, which from what we've seen, Covington is getting benched in the fourth quarter. Nurkic just, it seems like he's never going to get back to that 2018-19 form where he was legitimately a top 3 big in the league, top 3 center in the league. So what's this team? You know what this team is? This team is a 500 team, and that's with Dame maxing out. So if a new GM comes in and is what's best for the team? It's probably not going to be treadmill of mediocrity unless he gets a specific mandate from ownership saying you can't
do that.
Yeah.
It's I wouldn't want the job. I would probably take every job,
I'd
all
take
30
it.
jobs. But what do you do?
Well, I'd just be you paying me $4 million a year? I'll take it. $4 million US. Go over there, work for 2 years, get fired, come back. $4 million US per year. $8 million over 2 years. 16 million Australian.
All right, so this.
You know what I could do with 16 million Australian? I can do a hell of a lot with 16
you
million.
buy a lot of
Australian.
Pokemon cards for that.
You're telling me, bro. You are telling
It's
me.
all right. Well, there you go. It's a desirable job. I am interested to see what happens. That's all I can say. Whether he's fired for calls or without calls.
Yeah, I find this story really fascinating.
The timing is
well, obviously everything that's gone on with the Chauncey stuff,
and you let him have a fucking off season.
This is another one where it's cool. It's the the Hollinger comment about Luke Walton, Kangz firing him. Cool. Why did you do this? It's not like you didn't know.
Well, it's got off to a slow start. To be fair.
Yeah, but getting off to a slow start is a coaching thing. It's a playing thing. It's not a general managing thing. The team was the same. you could look at the team and say, here's the players. You could look at Robert Covington last year and Nurkic last year and say, these guys aren't very good. That's there. Like it's not to make a reaction to a slow start. You don't go after the GM. Like everything was set in stone from the GM's perspective. Obviously, the Chauncey stuff was people know our stance, our thoughts on the Chauncey stuff. But O'Shea did himself no favors by basically getting up and on his podium and pontificating, saying like, you're just going to have to trust us, but we're not going to give you any details whatsoever, and then shutting down the questions. That to the public was an indicator that something's a bit NQR with this guy, maybe with this organization. But yeah, in terms of an organizational decision-making process coming from the top down, they knew. The Allens 100% knew how he operates. Everyone knows how he operates. It's not a secret. Like all the Portland Trailblazers writers know how he operates. People around the league know how he operates. No secret. So the fact that they're like, oops, we just discovered there was a toxic workplace environment. Better do an investigation. It's like, well, cool. Could have done this in the off season. Plenty of time. If you weren't so busy hiring sexual abusers to be the coach, you probably would have had time to look at the actual GM stuff going on inside the organization. Anyway,
Portland, and cream on top, I don't like watching him.
Yeah, it's sad watching Nurk play now.
Yeah, I never liked watching Nurk play.
I loved watching.
He used to go at Jokic a lot.
Boy, that's because they were like frenemies.
And guess whose side I was on?
Yeah.
Why
were you on Jokic's side?
I will never look at Georges Niang the same after today.
Really?
I'm so fucking petty.
You're so off him.
Yeah. As in, just like, don't fucking come at JCA and Jordan like that.
Yeah. I watching the game, I remarked, Georges Niang was like talking. He was like yapping on the sideline, and I was like, wonder what his voice sounds like. I wonder if he has an accent. And you did say that he was either Ukrainian or Georgian. You said one of those. And then it turns out that he's actually American Senegalese.
Yeah.
So
who knew?
Yeah, a couple of thousand kilometers.
It's like GeoGuessr. You still get like 3,000 points for it. Have you ever played GeoGuessr?
No, what's that?
You would fucking love it, honestly.
You just guess countries.
No, you'll so they drop you down in Google Maps on Google Earth somewhere.
Yeah.
And then so they blur out the real giveaways, but you'll be on Google Earth and you just have to walk along the path and you'll see like a sign and it'll be like in Arabic and you're like, all right, I'm in an Arabic country. And then you look around and you'll be like, oh, there's a flag. Oh, that flag's, I don't know, some country. I call myself here. And then you just got to pinpoint on the map where you are. And then you get points based on how close your pin is. And you can also do famous places where it'll be like, bang, Arc de Triomphe. And then you're like, I know where that is, Paris, bang, you're done. Or it'll be like some wacky, like Italian fucking catacombs. And they're like, where's that? And you got to point to it where it is on the map. But you're just walking around in Google Earth and you have to figure out where you are.
Yeah, that does sound really up my alley.
And whenever I play it at work, every time I play, my boss it'll be like John's Restaurant. And then you'll Google it and you'll be like, oh, that's Uzbekistan. Yeah. And it's like, stop Googling it, man. Yeah. But really, it's cool to look at speed signs and be like, all right, miles per hour or kilometers per hour, and then you can narrow it down. And you look at this, you look at that, and you really last and you're like,
yeah, please, please. All right, well, just to cap this Blazers discussion, I think that far and away the most likely outcome is that they will say, thanks for everything you've done. We're going to pay you out the remaining 15 million over 2 years or whatever it is. Or most of it will pay you out 80%.
Especially after this GM association started popping up, which also suspiciously started popping up. There's so many layers to this story. Suspiciously popped up right after they're about to fire this dude. These reports coming out that that's the most likely play. This came up when the only sticking point is his money.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, if you've got a bunch of, like, Crimea River, bunch of GMs.
But that's not the only sticking point, though, because it's a big decision about whether to get rid of him.
It's not a breakup, though. Like,
well, I mean, in some ways, it's worse than a breakup.
Oh, is it?
I wouldn't want to have to part ways with Neil O'Shea.
Oh, because you get something thrown at you.
Yeah, probably. Literally just get attacked.
Yeah, you're right. It's probably going to need no money because I don't know if that GM association is really going to like take off.
No, but also like I just one part of me wants to be like, damn, like it's good to see someone who's well known as like a nasty person kind of being pushed out of the league. But then this whole GM association thing, which is basically that there's rumblings about GMs forming a professional association, basically a union. Cool, like the union's rallying around Neil O'Shea. It's like the unfair treatment of someone who created like a toxic workplace environment and who, hired like a fucking, a
Chauncey.
Yeah, hired a Chauncey, someone who's done very bad things. And just, I mean, we don't need to relitigate the whole Chauncey thing, the whole press conference thing, but Neil O'Shea is a very bad dude. It would be very funny if like the flashpoint for like the GMs being like, we're going to unionize was like, everyone's like, like protect Neil. It's like...
Yeah. It's not like Daryl Morey where it's like the ownership is clearly in the wrong and they're the idiots for getting rid of the best GM.
But also Daryl Morey, I think, was done with that whole situation by the time he wanted to...
Would he have still be done if he was allowed to pay the tax for the last couple of years, I reckon.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't form a... Yeah, we're not forming a professional association because Tillman Dirty Fingers Fertitta didn't let Dale pay the tax.
If there was a way to get rid of Tillman, it would have been done by now.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on. We'll just do a quick one of what we've seen this week in basketball. And I just want to talk about the value of point guard play. And I've been watching a lot of Cleveland basketball, which is something I would never have myself saying. Again, super petty. I don't like watching those fucking maroon and yellow people after years of finals. Actually, I am pretty petty. I was a Tristan Thompson thing where I just keep thinking of him making that stupid step back.
It's not news to me.
Wow. Well, that's how it is. So the value of point guard play, and like you're looking at these teams that aren't elite teams, but they want to get into the playoff conversation. And I think the thing, and we've talked about this a little bit in our group chat, because while a lot of GMs, like we're seeing, like we talked about before with Tim Connolly, will look to get depth all across the board. And we've kind of come to the realization that big man depth isn't as important as guard depth, because you can grab Alex Len for a minimum for the rest of eternity. They're always going to be there. But the minimum equivalent for a backup point guard is nowhere near as good as just like a good backup point guard. So obviously if you've got a backup center and you want to get Montrezl Harrell, he's going to be a great backup center. But the difference between him and Alex Len is much smaller than the difference between Sean Livingston and who was your Javon Carter for Phoenix, right? And so by Cleveland they've got heaps of bigs, they've got heaps of guys that can shoot, we think inefficiently, but they can at least put the ball in the basket. They've got 48 minutes of Darius Garland, a great point guard, not yet, and Ricky Rubio, a very capable point guard.
Extremely capable point
Well, it
guard.
wasn't last year. As my housemate and I always say, Spain's favourite son. But you've just got 48 minutes of a guy who's going to go out there, dribble properly, not turn it over, get your shooters the ball, get your rim rollers the ball, and it's just so valuable. And you're seeing it with Cleveland, where it's like there's just little to no holes on their team. The only thing that's got them is like COVID and injuries just absolutely decimating them. And we even saw this with my Golden State Warriors, where when they lost to the Clippers in consecutive playoff runs, they were struggling because they just couldn't do anything when Steph was off the court. And then they fixed it by getting Sean Livingston, who at the time looked fine, a little bit of an injury history, turned out to be like one of the best fucking options they could ever had, because he can defend 1 through 5 and like was just going to get in his little mid-range game. But just
never missed a shot.
Just get
Sean Livingston disease.
Him and Monty Morris, they just get capable backup point guard play, and all of a sudden, yes, Steph Curry is still amazing on plus minus because he's that good, but you've just got a guy who gets you to net neutral when he's on the court, and sometimes even positive, as opposed to beforehand, which was, we had the whole Jarrett Jack, we had the Jordan Crawford, we had the
Jordan Crawford, that's a deep cut.
Nemanja Nedovic.
Yeah.
That's a deeper cut. Him and Omnian Kumik.
Oh, I didn't even know who Omnian Kumik is. Didn't Nemanja Nedovic, I feel like, used to play for
the Heat as well.
The Kings, did he?
Maybe Nemanja B.
You just talk amongst yourselves.
Okay.
NBA. Golden State, that's it.
That's it, wow.
That's it, damn. A scintillating 20.5% from the field. See, he's the all-time, like, what does his number start with? Because his career average is 1.1 points per game on 20% from the field and 16% from three. So that's about as fucking bad as it gets in terms of, like, what number does it start with. Although credit where credit is due, he's a career 88% free throw shooter. So you know what they say, Sean?
It's too round a number.
Free throw percentage is often a better indicator of future 3-point success than 3-point percentage. So had Nemanja Nedovic stuck in the league, who knows what could he have doubled that 16% 3-point percentage? I don't know. And I'll tell you what though, something else. Pretty good, pretty good guy, and you certainly can't look past his 2017-18 season with Unicaja, where he played all 24 games, averaged 17 and 5. Bumped that number up, 43%, 35, and kept that amazing free throw percentage going, 85. So anyway, that's just some Nedovic chat. You were saying the value of point guard play?
The value of point guard play. Like, look at your Phoenix Suns, Cameron Payne. Look at the Warriors
look at him.
Just getting...
I'm going to hold your head. I'm going to peel your eyes back so you have to look.
Holy shit, the weeds.
Yeah. That's 3 for 19 campaign.
Warriors with just Jordan Poole and Andre Iguodala as like a hybrid, and maybe even throw Belly in there. Denver Nuggets, Monty Morris being so capable. He's got the only guard getting at least 500 minutes last year, ahead of Monty Morris in assist turnover ratio was CJ McCollum. He was just ahead of Chris Paul, who was third. Oh, is that a stifled yawn? Fuck you. Capable point guard play. Pay your backup point guards. It is extremely valuable, and even if you've got no backup center, no backup power forward, it's just so important to get someone who can just get the ball moving in the second unit.
Yeah, that's really important. My thing that I want to talk about this week is what I've been saying and what I want you, the listener, to be saying. It's the latest piece that's going to be up on the deep2.com. It really is that simple. Which will be up probably tomorrow, Friday. So by the time you're listening to this, it'll probably be up. So you should definitely go and check it out. I believe it's a site debut for Marco. That's Marco of the 4-Man Weave plus Marco fame.
What else is he
co-host
from?
of the JVG NBA Tribute Show. And he's written about his beloved New Orleans Pelicans and the various trials and tribulations that esteemed franchise is facing. And it's a really good read. Marco's a really talented writer. There are a couple of absolutely cracking one-liners in there. So that will be up on the site, probably Friday. So if you've got a spare 10 minutes, 15 minutes, because it's a bit of a read. So there's a lot to get into there. Obviously, New Orleans is always a lot to get into there. If you've got a spare 10, 15 over the weekend, give it a read. Nice. Jump on, give it a read. Deep2.com.
Well, between then and now, them reading the episode, reading the article, I'll speak to you next week, Dante.
Hey, at 12 Danye, do you like hearing the down low on all your NBA and basketball content?
Hey, at Will Conkin on Instagram and Twitter. Don't you mean the lowdown on NBA and basketball content?
No, I mean the down low, because that's our show, The Down Low,
where we give you the lowdown on everything NBA.
Check out The Down Low NBA on all your podcasting platforms like Spotify, Apple, or even Google Podcasts.
Google has podcasts?
Yeah, I didn't even know that either, but now you know, so go and get it in your ears.